So this is Sixers Universe. We played 2 games, lost one embarrassing one, had one heroic game, and it's really interesting that all that transpired in basically 48 hours because it gave you an overload of information that you kind of needed and just a bunch of things to go over. That's what this is going to be. This is going to be an overview of things that I've been thinking about over the last 48 hours because so much has really taken place. Let's get the bad out of the way. I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'm going to go into full detail, but I don't think Doc Rivers makes it past this year. I don't think we want him to make it past this year. I'm starting off with Toronto. It's funny, people are mentioning about what Tim Legler had said and how off the mark that it was. Part of the off the mark, part of that was mentioning, a bunch of high screens and ISOs. There were definitely a bunch of ISOs, but as far as screens, I want to quantify. For me, a screen, even if you're popping, a screen is you getting between your man and the defender. That's the whole point of a screen, even a pop. And in my mind, I went on NBA.com and I looked at the shots that Harden took, that Joel took, Maxey took, etc. And I only saw, to my count, 15 screens, even popping, 15 times in that whole disaster of a performance against Toronto. I saw maybe 15 screens tops. And you converted on damn near 7 of those. So there's this narrative on the screen thing that kind of has to die. Not only does it have to die, it's just not really what's truly happening. And what happened in the first 3 games of the Harden era. You're running screens up the middle. Tyrese Maxey is there in the corner. One of the best corner 3-point shooters ever. The dude is the combined Bruce Bowen, Danny Green proficiency at the corner with his pull-up game. And I'm going to talk exclusively about the game that we just played against the Miami Heat. But we literally, before that was fought to implement the playbook, you basically ran pick and roll up the middle of the floor, and you had to make a decision. Were you going to guard Joel on the pop? Were you going to guard him on the roll? Or would Harden make the swing pass? And there's a couple of things at play. Number one, I acknowledge there's a little bit of bad luck. Joel Embiid's jumper last week and a half had been off. And because he's taken that jumper more than not, it's also plummeted his field goal percentage. So there's a little bit of that bad luck there. The other part of it is Harden decision making, and that doesn't just refer to him foul baiting. I'm going to make a separate video on that. Thinking basketball, literally just put out this garbage video that, like I said, you might as well rename that entire segment bitching about Philadelphia's offense. It was a terrible video. I'm not even going to bother linking you to it. It was that bad. But just know that for me, thinking basketball has long been a very neutral sort of thing, and now I don't know about them. Because it was clearly BS. You have 30 teams to pick from. And of all the 30 teams, you couldn't have just picked a couple of examples from different games of things you don't like. No. That was literally a 5-minute segment of just flat out trashing Philadelphia. So now I don't know about them as a source. Because if you're going to pick on one thing, it better be one thing that only one team does and not anyone else. So speaking of that, the officiating in the game was trash. Absolute trash. The Raptors doubled the free throws of the team, and they weren't even attacking the basket. I mean, you didn't think that Scotty Barnes was driving basketball? Not really. So the Raptors got more fouls. They weren't really shooting fouls, and that's why you ended up still shooting more free throws, but 23 fouls to 16. I dare thinking basketball and the like to come from a top 5 worst officiated game like that Raptors game, and I dare them to tell me that Harden and Embiid foul bait. Because that game of 23 fouls against the Sixers tells a very different reality from the one that they would like to say. The reason that Harden and Embiid get free throws is they put defenders in compromising positions. And those defenders are not playing good defense. If you're slapping someone on the arm, that is a foul. Pull your hand away or make a better effort at hitting the basketball. You know, the legal thing. The NBA even made it easy for you and said you could technically hit the hand incidentally with the ball. So it's even a little bit easier for you. Just play good defense. Just play good defense. I know, it's hard. You get paid millions of dollars to play a sport. The least you can do is stay laterally. I'm sorry. This is going to be a detailed Sixer breakdown, but I just had to get that off my chest. And thinking basketball, a source I truly respected deeply, just went on a basically let's bitch about Philadelphia video. That's just not what I expect from them. That was just funny. But back to it. So, okay, the officiating was shit in the Toronto game. But what I was alluding to, what I was saying before I went on that 2-minute rant was James Harden decision making. And I was saying, isn't so much foul baiting? Okay, there's a little bit of it. But not to, the level of these people. They're just making excuses, in my opinion, for bad defense. Defend better, and you won't be sending these guys to the line. There was actually a Twitter video that came out in a game against New York when we were at Madison Square Garden. And the dude had a confrontation about the free throws and whether or not in his mind it was worth it. And of the 35 times we got to the line, he thought we got to the line right 32 times. So literally 76%, 85%. Just stop reaching in. Seriously, that's all you have to do. All you have to do is stop reaching in. Stop reaching in. Or when the offensive player is moving into you, stand up laterally and again make a play on the ball. On the ball. Your goal as a defender is to make a play on the ball, not the body. Make a play on the ball and you won't get fouls. That's how Matisse is getting in fouls. He's literally putting himself in a position where he's going to get body contact because he's not playing his man. He's trying to attack the ball as a weak side shot. Like, stop. You're not Josh Smith. Stay in front. What is it with defenders and playing shit-ass terrible defense? I have no idea. And when these players play terrible defense, we blame the officials. No, they just suck at defense. It is what it is. Like, seriously, play better defense, you won't get called for a foul. It's really that simple. It's really, truly that simple. It's not rocket science. But what I meant about Harden's decision making is, like I said, Maxey in the corner 3, on fire, absolutely terrific. At the same time, in those 3 games, Harden was making a pass to the corner. That's why Maxey was getting those insane scoring opportunities, because Harden kept hitting him and kept hitting him and kept hitting him. Now, what changed a little bit? There's actually quite a few things that changed, but the early thing that changed is, if you'll notice, Harden is not making that pass to the corner as much. And that's what everyone was like, what's Maxey talking about with Cleveland? What Maxey was talking about, he's like, dude, I've been open at that corner all night, and you maybe passed it to me in the corner twice. I could have like 8 3-pointers. And so for me, looking at the fan and looking at the scout, and if I were a coach, I would say the same thing. Hey, Harden, that's our 60% 3-point shooter. I like Niang and all, and I guess you need to give T some confidence, whatever, but Would you rather Matisse will take a corner 3-point shot or Tyrese Maxey take a corner 3-point shot? Tyrese Maxey. So when Harden gets back in, hey Harden, make a concentrated effort. That 3-point corner pass is going to be there for you, and Maxey should be attempting his 5-6 3 a game. Get back to passing to Maxey in the corner, because you've gone away from that. You've gone away from feeding Tyrese Maxey the point guard, and it's kind of hurt you a bit. So that's what I mean with decision making. There's also the transition thing, but I don't really blame him. That to me is going to be an off-season thing. When Daryl Morey gives him an athlete. You know, if you go back even to Houston, James Harden is the one who made Montrezl Harrell, made Clint Capella. And you might say for that reason, play D-ball Paul. Oh, we'll get to this. We will get to this. It just coincides so well. And I did start the video with Doc Rivers before I was talking about James Harden. There's just so much to go through it over what happened in 48 hours. But we'll get to the Doc thing right here, right now, since I just touched on it. Doc Rivers, and what makes Doc Rivers a bad coach. In these 48 hours, I realized it. I was able to realize everything that makes him a bad coach. From a tactical standpoint, you have the best pick-and-roll combination, in my opinion, in the NBA. You have James Harden, who can manipulate defenses. If you get him one-on-one, it doesn't matter whether you pop or whether you roll. I don't care. And it doesn't even matter sometimes who you do it with. But if you get this guy a screen, Harden, I hate to tell Doc this. Doc is one of the things I hate about him most. And it just goes to everybody, right? Oh, maybe I can get Los Angeles Clippers Jordan, or maybe stop it. You're not going to get that guy. And, you know, he and some of the team, and even us as fans, were looking at Harden like he's Houston Harden. That's done. He's not Houston Harden anymore. That's never going to happen. He's clearly lost the first step. He's clearly lost that ability to get inside of the interior even without a screen. He can still do it from time to time, but he's 33 with a hamstring. I think it's time to acknowledge that Harden's going to need more of a team game than what he himself has been accustomed to over the past 4 or 5 years. This ain't the same young cat anymore. So you have to scheme accordingly. And that is what pisses me off about it, is that he's like, I don't want James Harden to be a point guard. I want James Harden to be aggressive because the point guard stuff is going to come anyway. This isn't when Harden averaged 36 points and he says, that guy's gone, Doc. That guy's gone. It's never coming back. When Harden was playing the James Harden style of basketball the first few games, you know, concentrating on getting to the rim, you know, and using that ability to get to the rim to set up his teammates, and the ball was flying everywhere, that is James Harden. I do want James Harden to be a point guard. I don't want him to be a scorer. We have Joel Embiid. We have Tyrese Maxey. You have Niang shooting sometimes. I want James Harden to be James Harden point guard. Whether he is an elite scorer or not, that doesn't matter to me. If you are third option, second option with your elite point guard player, and he's even been a good defensive player, particularly in the interior, I can see now why James Harden likes the switching idea, because he can guard twos, he can guard threes, and he can guard some point guards if they drive at him, and he's able to use his body in that regard. So he's been a good positional defender in ways that I've never seen before. I think that he's been underrated a bit defensively. He'll never make an All-NBA defensive team or anything, but can he be a part of a good team, solid rotational defense? Absolutely. That's why that hasn't dropped off at all. Now, mind you, you basically were trading Steph Curry for him, so it wasn't like you were going to get any defensive drop-off. In fact, you got an upgrade on the defensive end of the floor. I've been very happy with James Harden's defense. Say what you will about the offense, you know, to allude to the one thing that Doc said that is true, shots will eventually fall. But James Harden's defense have been, for the most part, obviously there's a transition thing, but you shouldn't be looking at your guard to guard the rim. I would like it if James Harden could press a little bit on the guard in transition, But again, if you're looking for him to do this offense thing, you also can't look for him to pressure a guard in transition defense. So it's going to be, this roster's not complete yet. Your big three is, but you're going to need to get these role players in here. You heard me right, role players. You getting Bradley Beal ain't going to do shit, but you need wings. You need a forward who can guard multiple positions. You need a backup point guard because you just don't have one right now. You see what I'm saying here? You getting Bradley Beal? That's a cute, sexy name, but that's not what this organization needs in order to get to June. And that's what we want to do. We want to get to June. We don't want to do what the Nets are doing. We want to actually matter. The Nets don't matter. ESPN wants them to matter because they manufacture that entire narrative, the same thing they did for the Lakers. But those two franchises are irrelevant. We don't want to be the Lakers and we don't want to be the Nets. We want to build a roster that can get to June. To do that, the Sixers need that backup point guard. They need a starting small forward, but generally, okay, in terms of level, just get a small forward who is under the age of 26 and can make a basketball play. Like, enough of Danny Green. The Matisse Bible thing is an epic disaster. Romp 2.0. Sixers talk for Romp. Totally showed that to the world. Great job on his part. But literally, you have a small forward hole. And I've been on that hole for 2 years, if you remember. If you've been on this channel, you know that I've been consistent that the Sixers have a small forward issue. They have no one that's actually payable. Or at least, I think. I do have some ideas. The Miami game gave me ideas. It gave me ideas, and I'm going to breach on those ideas. It's a part of the doc segment. So, to me, the idea that James Harden could be the old James Harden, that's gone. I want James Harden to be a facilitator. I want him to be a playmaker. If he gives me 18 to 20 points, that's cool. If he gives me anything more, he's super hot that game. That's awesome. But I just want you to get to the line normally, make plays normally, be normal James Harden. Normal James Harden. I don't need you to be aggressive James Harden. Now, on that note, from the Miami game, obviously Tyrese Maxey was absolutely incredible. And it's amazing and unfortunate that the Doc Rivers disaster and wanting to recap 48 hours has that overtake what Tyrese Maxey is. This kid is something else. When this kid has the ball, and when this kid is allowed to go one-on-one on a mismatch, and first of all, the kid is kind of unlucky. Like, there was this loose ball foul. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. The ball is loose at the time. Obviously, there was a loose ball foul. But my point being, the ball is on the floor. The two players are going to scrum for the basketball. And Maxey just happened to be there a slight second later. A slight second later. And because he's there a slight second later, he's not able to get the ball. And there's incidental contact in the scrum. My personal feeling on this is simple. The player falling on basically Tyrese's ass is not a foul. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not a foul. And basically the reason you call it foul is to call it dead ball. That's pretty much what it is. Because that's not a basketball foul by the definition of it's a live ball situation and Tyrese just happened to not be able to get there in time. It is what it is. But the offensive player wasn't fouled. Where's the defensive foul on the player? He didn't violate him from a physical perspective in terms of stripping the ball or anything. Not like, the slap of the wrist or accidental hit in the face or any of that. It's just an incidental basketball play. And I would just love to go to the rules committee. I want a general manager to go to the rules committee and say, hey, we need to regulate these loose ball fouls better because getting there a second late is not really a foul per se. That would be like in football, you have a football just fumbled and you're going to call a personal foul. There are personal fouls in football. It's just very rare for a personal foul to be called. It would have to be truly excessive physical contact, normally fights. But it would be like calling a personal foul in football to the second or third guy in the scrum for the football. He didn't make the football. He damn straight didn't even come close to touching the football in that scrum situation. But you don't see the NFL throwing personal foul flag on a scrum. And, you know, obviously we don't want an NFL-like scrum in basketball, but Jesus, I feel like there needs to be a little discretion to where if there's incidental contact, you don't blow a whistle. That's basically what it comes down to. Just don't blow a whistle. Like, the player can dribble the ball, get him up, pass the ball, make a play resumes. Don't call a foul. It's not a foul. It's not a foul in the basketball pure sense of the word. It's just a silly play. And it's just stuff like that. And there was a little bit of the same thing in the Heat game where it's just this small ticky-tack shit. You know, to quote running back Philly DJ Eastwood, it's just this ticky-tack shit that doesn't call anyway. They didn't watch the players. They didn't watch these guys compete high level. They're not here to say, there's a slight on time she gets over the foul. Stop it! Stop it! No one's here to see the divas. They're there to see the athletes, even the athletes on the opposing team. You know, actually that came up in the Embiid Jokic game, right? Like both of them were in foul trouble. Like, stop it! You want to see Embiid and Jokic? Won't be an official. But yeah, Maxey got in that ridiculous foul trouble in the Heat game, and you know he started 0-3. But I will say this: even though it looked like it started cold, if you really look at the shots, I remember the game that I knew that Tyrese was going to take it to the next level. It was a game against New York, and New York was visiting us. Tyrese Maxey went 6 for 19, but if you look at the 19 shots, 17 of them rimmed out, and I was like, this guy was a little bit of gravity away from putting up 50. And that's what kind of quarter and half it was against Miami. It was like, of the 9 shots, 8 of them rimmed out, and I'm like, if science is in Maxey's favor in the second half, he's going to do his thing, and that's what he did. And boy, did he do it. The sidestep three-pointer, oh my God. And then later on, he hits a three from the freaking logo, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry style. Are you kidding me? You know, it's a shame that Comcast, you know, kind of cut off RB's feed. I would have loved an organic reaction from RB to those 2 awesome three-pointers by Tyrese Maxey. Because I know what my reaction was in your time. I was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Anyone who knows this channel knows that I am an extraordinarily big Tyrese Maxey fan. I love that player, what he does offensively and even defensively. I feel like he competes. What he has to do better is he has to laterally side his feet better, be up in the chest better. Don't let yourself get dislodged as easily. And when you're rotating, just make sure to have that proper closeout. So where, you know, kind of a little too energetic. But I'd rather you be too energetic than not energetic enough. Just these things in terms of having stout hips defensively, that's only going to get better as he gets more experience. You know, as good as he's been this year, he's been remarkable. It's still hard to remember, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This is a second-year player, but the upside on both sides of the ball is just out of this world. Did you see that? LeBron James X chase down block by Tyrese Maxey to seal the game, like Doc Rivers said, just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible by Tyrese Maxey to make a block like that. So, okay. Now we're going to get to, I already mentioned, we need to be running more pick and roll. We need to be running that ball more often. I mentioned Harden needs to make passes into Tyrese Maxey in the corner. And, when you're hitting the threes from the corner, when you're hitting pull-up threes that allow you to drive, and Tyreek Maxey's just a great driver, head of steam, always looking at the rim. And, sometimes that's a bad thing from the playmaking perspective, but now that you've got Harden, and even a big part of that second half is playing with Shea Milton. And I'm going to discuss this. Now, I'm not taking away from what I said. Shea Milton is not a point guard, but he is another guard. And in of itself, that meant a lot for what you're trying to do. But I'm going to get into the rotations and why the rotations have truly been fucked up. Alright, we'll get into that now. I'm sorry, I know this has been all over the place. I've jumped from one point to the other point, but that's what you're going to get with an organic video like this, where I don't take the notes. I'm going to be thinking about one point that I want to make, and then after I make that point, I'm like, that point connects to this point, so I might as well make this point while I'm making that point, and it's kind of, it's like a line, it's freestyle rap. Like, you're going to get an overload of information at once, and if you can do that, then that's awesome. So, we'll be a little more structured with this point, though. Rotations. Okay, I'm going to phrase it like this. And I know that you at least were able to get some crucial rebounds, but I want to put it this simply to Mr. Rivers, who I call Coach Jackass. You played DeAndre Jordan and Paul Millsap 48 minutes last night. Here's what you got. 7 points and 12 rebounds. Think about that. You played a platoon of two centers. One of them is 6'7" and shouldn't be a freaking center anyway. The other one is just a terrible defensive center. Like, literally, how bad DeAndre Jordan is at defense. There was this pick and roll, and Bam Adebayo hadn't even gotten into the paint yet. Like, the roll was just beginning, and Abernathy was already like, he got him. Like, literally within the second of the play about the paint. That's how bad DeAndre Jordan has been at defense. It's like, enough. He can't protect the rim. He doesn't have the spiky or legs, or the young legs that he would when the Clippers stock. It's over. DeAndre Jordan is not a basketball player at this stage of his career. It is what it is. And the other guy is 6'7". What do you have against Charles Bailey and Paul Reed? Seriously, why did their boy bother? That's my question to that. Why did he bother? Jaden Springer, your first round pick is in the Z, and I've always thought it a bad pick. Why? For what reason, what purpose, I'll never understand. Because you're going to be up to the cap, you're going to have these fee contracts, you need to hit this stuff, and you're not giving yourself a chance. You're really not giving yourself a chance. It's like, oh, they're trying to get people pay off. Let me tell you something. Barely getting 7 points and 12 rebounds, that's not helping you on your playoff run. Like, you're lucky that the Heat don't have a great center. I've always thought that Bam Adebayo is the most overrated big man in the league. I don't care to put that on YouTube. I don't care to put that in public. I don't care if he hears that and gets mad about it. I think he's the most overrated center in basketball. Bam Adebayo is essentially, he screams and he dunks. The only difference between him and Clint Capella is heat culture, and they have a nice little media market for Miami. That's it. In terms of the overall level of skill, I don't think that he's any better than Clint Capella. So unless you're telling me you really like Clint Capella, I don't think that he has a top-of-the-line center. And the proof of that is the 7 points and 12 rebounds didn't necessarily kill you. But even more to the point, could Sean Bailey or Paul Reed get you 7 points? Yeah. Could either of them get you 12 rebounds? Yeah. But I'll tell you this, you wouldn't have to play them 48 minutes to get there. In most games, you could probably get 6 or 7 rebounds in 20 minutes. We've seen Paul Reed literally 3 weeks ago. He was your primary backup before Paul Millsap hit 2 threes. That's the craziest part about it. He was your backup center. And in my view, and Joe Beatty mentioned it, Paul Reed played good basketball. All of a sudden, you get blown out by the Celtics. Paul Millsap hits 2 irrelevant garbage 3-pointers. And all of a sudden, he's in the mix of your center rotation? Rivers, what is this? Why? What logic did you come to in practice or whatever the coaching staff that made you say those two random threes he hit made him a real big factor for us moving forward? I don't understand. It just does not make sense to me. And don't even get me started on DeAndre Jordan. Meanwhile, Sean Bailey is dominating the G League. And yeah, it's the G League. And that is what it is. But it shows you they have a shot. You're not giving them a shot. You're giving a 33, 35-year-old who's on a 1 year of their contracts who aren't going to mean anything. They're not going to help you get to June, and they're not going to help you with anything long term. Why the fuck are we doing it? Why? Well, whose gratification? Not for the Sixers. Shut up, Del Moy. I'm a scout. Why do we pick these players? Why did I tell you to pick these players? Why do we have scouts go to the games with these prospects only for you to literally dump them to the far end of the bench? 2 seconds for Paul Reed in a throwaway game. 2 seconds. 2. Why? Why? And here's the other problem. Okay, so a big story of the Miami game is Burkhan Korkmaz got hot for the first time in forever. Shea Milton is able to do some things. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here. One of the big reasons that was able to happen is Tyler Hero defensively. And I don't think you're going to get that more than not. A little less so for Korkmaz. Korkmaz shows some things as far as he's finally hot. And when it comes to Korkmaz, I actually think that Korkmaz getting little Lito's weeks off, getting that slate of games off, I think that refreshed him. I think that helped him. So not so much that. But with the Shea Milton thing, I saw some things that really intrigued me and things that make me remember what I think about the player. He's not a point guard, but could Shea Milton be the answer to our small forward problem? See, here's the thing. Because Doc Rivers insists on playing Shea Milton as a point guard, and he will never be because he just does not have point guard ability, he struggles at point guard. And it's the same thing for Korkmaz is not really a defensive wingman. You put Korkmaz at the wing, and all of a sudden, you're not going to get the best Burkhan Korkmaz because he isn't a wing defender. And it's exactly like, so for example, the Toronto game, where you're getting out rebounded and stuff, Paul Reed makes the great defensive plays, and people are like, and there was somebody like, oh, there was a minus sign. Yeah, DeAndre Jordan stunned the fucking joint. I wanted to play the two bigs together, take the scrub out, the 33-year-old, get Niang in, get Harrison, get somebody else, get DeAndre Jordan off the fucking floor. That's what was happening there. This is my main point. Doc Rivers does not do good lineups. You know, like, so here's my thing. This bench is definitely flawed. You know, that's what I got to thinking at the end of the game. Yes, this bench is flawed. Korkmaz is inconsistent. Milton does not have a 15-foot jumper to save his life. He's not a point guard. But these guys have something to offer. And that's the takeaway. And I'm sorry that it took me 34 minutes to get there. These guys have something to offer. But you need somebody, a head coach, who knows how to put a lineup together to make proper decisions on how to get the best out of them. So, for example, a guy like Burkhan Korkmaz, you have to see. You put him in for a spell and you see. Is he starting 1 for 5 or is he 3 for 5? If he's 3 for 5, we're going to keep him in. If he's 1 for 5, we take him out. Bam, dude, done. That's how that works. You know, we've been saying the same thing from the Brett Brown era onward when it comes to Korkmaz. You just got to make sure to see what that is. If he's hot, you can play him in a game. Now, the other thing that we've also been talking about is moving the ball and why the ball had been stuck. And DJ had made a perfect point about how Harden is the only guard on the floor. Why is that the case? That should not be the case. Shake Milton may not be a point guard, but I could put him at the wing. And this gets me back to what I was thinking about last year. We made a run in game 4 to be double digits against the Hawks. One of our lineup it was the Trader, Ben Simmons, George Hill, and Tyrese Maxey. Actually, not Tyrese Maxey at the time. I think it was Shake Milton. But you had 3 guards on the floor. Basically, we're going to call that a guard. But no, whatever. But you had 3 ball handlers on the floor. And you're able to spread the floor that way. I don't know why Doc Rivers doesn't realize, put more ball handlers on the floor. Even with a guy like James Harden, you can still benefit by having 3 ball handlers on the floor. 3 guys who can make a dribble and get to a spot. 3 ball handlers on the floor. And the reason I say that is this. If you were to take out Shake Milton or James Harden or whatever, that's going to complicate it because not only is Shake Milton not a point guard, but Shake Milton can't shoot. You got to realize that. So some people like bench Tyrese Maxey, and it's like, that's not going to do it. That's going to be detrimental because Shake Milton can't shoot. That's really simple. Shake Milton can't shoot. So if I put Shake Milton for Tyrese Maxey, I'm taking away shooting. But if I put Milton and Maxey together, like at the end of that Heat game, major. If I put Milton, Maxey, and Korkmaz, I'm spreading the floor. If I'm putting Harden, Maxey, Milton, spread the floor. Put 2 or more ball handlers on the floor at all times. There, period. So if they try to trap James Harden can swing it to Maxey or swing it to a Milton or whoever, and you can create a dribble that way. And if Milton gets trapped in that middle pick and roll in the paint, he can kick it back out to Harden for a step back 3, or Maxey, or Yang, or Green, or whoever. It's basic basketball. If you want to play a 1-guard lineup, you're going to need the shooters that you don't have. And that's going to take you to the offseason. We need to find our Ryan Anderson. We need to find our Eric Gordon, but they're not on the roster right now. So what you need to do is overlap one of your ball handlers and get more than 1 ball handler on the board. So Jesus, yes, Korkmaz is streaky. Milton can't hit a 15-footer and should not be a point guard. Always have a guard with him. Whether it's Maxey, whether it's Harden, I don't care. Have someone else to handle it for him, and then when you cross half court and you're in your half court set, pass the ball to Milton on the wing, let Milton make something happen. It's mind-bogglingly simple. It is mind-bogglingly simple. And this guy, through 21 years as a head coach and only 1 championship, I've never been able to make a rotation to save his life. And when I notice over 48 hours, he is worse than Brett Brown at this. Like, seriously, stop with DeAndre Jordan. Either do not play coach's decision. I do not want to see DeAndre Jordan again. And you're probably going to need Furkan, not because Furkan is great, but because Furkan is the only thing you have. But make sure that if he's high, he's on the floor. And if he's not, then you can take him out. Same thing with Matisse Thybulle. Matisse Thybulle not a starter. I know, you don't have any options. Literally going down the list of names, you see that the Sixers have suffered the Ben Simmons thing, not only for what Ben did as a person, but what he did in terms of your picks and everything else. Because by God, you have no wing options. I get it. I get that you don't have a wing option. I understand that, but Lord, just like Korkmaz, situational. If I need defense, then I'll put in 5. But other than that, you can't do the 4-on-5 thing. He's not a starter. And like what I'm saying, even if he hits 2 threes, not really anything else. So we need a dribble game out of him. Or we need him to actively make those cuts more consistent. And it needs to be way more off. But do you want it to be? Like, we saw Thybulle break like 3 open layups in the other game. And it's like, dude, if you're going to do that, like, this is the only thing you can do, right? Be a cutter, so you're going to have to finish the rim on uncontested shots. So I get it. On one end, Doc, I get it. Your bench is shit. It's terrible. At the main everything's true, but you don't do them any favors. Alright, this time I got to that point in 10 minutes. That the bench is terrible, but Doc doesn't do any favors. I'm gonna end it right there. I'm gonna end it on 40 minutes of that. So if you enjoy my thoughts on everything that happened in 48 minutes and 40 minutes, subscribe, etc. I'll do better next time. Peace.